He's going to pivot to discipline here. So he's been talking about authority. He's going to pivot to discipline because he says on page 29, it is God who is not being obeyed when you are disobeyed. It is God who is not being honored when you are not honored. And I just wrote what in the margin when I saw that, because again, no case has been made, but even just pragmatically speaking, thinking about how that plays out for any human being to believe they are God, that they have the kind of infallible judgment that would say if someone resists them, it's like resisting God, has very troubling implications. Ted is going to offer some disclaimers here to prevent against abuse of this principle by suggesting, well, parents are not permitted to have what he calls unholy anger over the fact that you are not getting what you want from your child, because that will muddy the waters of discipline. How are parents discerning that? We get no tools in this book, in this framework, to offer parents a way to evaluate whether they are acting inappropriately in their discipline. And this has a couple of really practical harmful effects. It can create a kind of scrupulosity that's going to paralyze parents and tie them in knots if every behavior, even the smallest thing, like resisting a diaper change, a toddler throwing food off a table, a child having a hard time instantly obeying. These aren't just behavioral problems. He's made that case very clear. These are heart issues. And if the heart issue underneath throwing food off the tray is defying the God of the universe, then that really escalates everything to huge proportions for discipline, but also parental ability to engage their children. It can be paralyzing if you, as a sincere parent, are thinking, man, if I ignore what kind of feels to me like childish misbehavior, am I enabling my child to defy God Almighty? And it can really get people wrapped up and tangled up in a kind of myopic scrupulosity. I also think we end up with a cultivation of a cool and detached way of disciplining. And Ted really even directly says this. And the next section, he goes on to give a little script about spanking. Father, you didn't obey Daddy, did you? Child, no. Father, do you remember what God says Daddy must do if you disobey? Child, spank me? Father, that's right, I must spank you. If I don't, then I would be disobeying God. You and I would both be wrong. That would not be good for you or for me, would it? Child, no, a reluctant reply. This is the script offered that now maybe what's arguably a developmentally appropriate behavior, or even if there's an element of defiance, what is something where a child does need correction or instruction, it's been elevated to a child defying God himself, and the child is going to be shamed for that, but also shamed because the parent is reluctantly now spanking, and the child is being given the responsibility for that. The parent's not owning their choice to spank or discipline in this way. They're saying, because of what you did, I have to do this because otherwise I would be disobeying God. And it transfers that same scrupulosity the parent's feeling back onto the child in a kind of recommended cool and detached way. It says on page 30, there is tremendous freedom here for the parent. And I did write, this does not mean what he thinks he means, what he means by it. But he says, when you direct, correct, or discipline, you are not acting out of your own will. You are acting on behalf of God. And such gymnastics here that this is not freedom. This is license. This is exactly what he's maybe pushing back against. This essentially unleashes a parent to believe that whatever their response to their child, which I think honest parents are willing to admit, in a moment where a parent feels disobeyed or feels like a child needs correction, these are not cool, detached moments. They can trigger deep-seated stuff in us that we don't necessarily even understand. We might not have even worked through our own stuff where we realize like, oh my goodness, I am stressed because my child is tantruming because someplace deep inside, I know it's very unsafe to tantrum. Shut that down or something bad will happen, and a parent can jump in and shut. They are not even maybe fully aware of their responses. And Tripp here is saying, whatever your response is, it's God endorsed. You don't have to wonder about that. Be confident, be free to do that. And I worry about how this can escalate, and when it's paired with the kind of detachment that Christian parenting teaching really endorses for spanking and corporal punishment, you can end up with parents who have completely detached from their own emotions, detached for the emotional experience of their child, and just are implementing corporal punishment in a very detached way.